Welcome to Film on Tape, a free audio library for creatives in film and television. My name is Misha Calvert, and I've worked as an actor, writer, director, and producer for many decades. I had so many questions when I was first getting started in New York, and I just wanted fast, free answers. That is what this library is for. The work that you do as a creative is so important. I really hope that this library is going to help get your work out there. Film on Tape is sponsored by Vermilion, a coaching and educational company for creatives. You can learn more at clubvermilion.com. So this week, I have a special episode for you starring Raye Spielberg and myself. We were guests on a podcast called Show Don't Tell, hosted by a filmmaker named Noam Kroll, who does really cool interviews with people in the industry, working filmmakers and actors and so on. Raye and I talked all about Pink Flags. We talked all about the making of the film, the idea, to the development, to the production, and our friendship, and also what it was like to work with Sawyer Spielberg, who's Steven Spielberg's son, and what that was like for me. Really one of the highlights of my career so far, working with this amazing creative couple. So we've got the whole episode for you here. I really, really hope that you enjoy it. And if you do, drop me a DM. Let me know what you thought of the conversation.
I'm really excited to talk about your short film, the story itself. Like, how did it all come together? The concept, like the very kind of beginning origin story of the film.
The origin story is that Raye and Sawyer were in my bedroom at my birthday party, and Raye's been a friend for over a decade, and they were like, "We should make a film together," and I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Yeah, you should write it and direct it, and we'll be in it." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's in my head. Like, I would love that. Like, I don't know what it's going to be about. I'm, honestly, like, Sawyer is great, but I was a little intimidated by him when I first met him. He's kind of the strong, silent type, and so I was really excited by the idea, but it took me a while to Raye. I don't know if I ever told you this, to find the confidence to just really say yes in my head. And then when I said yes, finally, I just wanted to get from them, like, what do you want this movie to be about? What kind of movies do you like? Sky's the limit. And then Raye is a figure skater and a very, very good skater at that. And I care about women's issues all the time. And so that kind of always finds its way in there. And then I thought, wouldn't it be fun to make Sawyer the antagonist and make him kind of a villain of sorts?
I want to hear Raye's sort of entry point as well, but you had already directed, it looks like, quite a few just based on your IMDb, like shorts and TV material. So what was it that felt sort of the most like intimidating about this short film? Because it looks like had quite a bit of experience already, right?
Yes, I had done many short films. I had done a number of series. I'd sold a couple of short form series to different networks. And I think for this, I really put the pressure on myself to make it something that was as cinematic as something that I would see in a movie theater, or the gorgeous films that to me are like truly at the top of the industry for caliber, like how they look, production value, camera. So a lot of my work prior had been, I started in comedy, and just episodic and comedy, like, it's a different look. It's not necessarily cinematic. It doesn't have to be. There's the different things that you're looking for. But with this, I really wanted to make something cinematic. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just like getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and trying something new, which is always daunting. And Raye, how about you as far as like wanting to do this project and that moment, I guess, at the party and like, pitching the idea of working together? Was it just kind of on a whim? Is that something you'd been thinking about for a while? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I'm first and foremost like such a true collaborator, so I'm always looking for like how to collaborate with people. I remember just Misha kind of, like we'd been talking about working together for a while. And then we actually met in Costa Rica, and then we went our separate ways, and after the trip, and kind of just stayed in touch, but just Misha kind of started doing a lot of like stuff, a lot more directing and writing and all that stuff. And I really love Misha's style, and I love like the weird and the behavior that she's able to like bring out in her characters, and also the comedy. Like it's just such a kind of comedy that is so unique. And
Thank you.
And so, yeah, when we were in Costa Rica together, I remember some of the pieces that she wrote were just so fun. And I was like, yeah, that's like so freaking fun. So I think I don't birthday party, all of this stuff. I don't really quite recall how it happened, but I remember that, a few weeks later, Misha was like, cool. So how about this?
Yeah.
And I was like, great, awesome. Let's do it.
And sometimes, I mean, more often than not, I think that's how the best projects end up getting made. It's not like forced. It's just kind of this organic thing where you have a friend or whoever that you want to work with, and you respect each other's process and see the potential. And then it's more motivating to like go through the process, because making any film, whether it's a short or feature, is obviously such an uphill battle. And there's always like so many challenges. So you want to be in it with somebody that is truly a good creative partner and that you have synergy with. And I mean, that sounds amazing. And, one question also for you, Misha, just on like working in the short form realm, because I don't know too much about your TV background, but again, just from IMDb, you could see you've directed, multiple episodes of different shows and things like that. And a lot of filmmakers see short films as kind of like an audition to direct TV, let's say, or to direct a feature, but you had already done that. And then you continue to kind of work in the short form realm, which I love. And I do the same, like having done features, I'm very much still like attracted to short form because it has its own kind of benefits. But yeah, just as a whole, like stepping back from this individual film, like what do you like about shorts, like, and how does that contrast with some of your work kind of in TV and longer format?
Yes. So the nice thing about short form is the terrible thing about short form, which is that there's no real money.
Yeah.
There's no real way to monetize it. And as a result, there's no real stakes. I mean, for the main executive producer, the creator, sure, like just the time sink, but no one really cares what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as a result, there's nowhere to go but up. And you can take extraordinary risks and do insane things and creatively really have a super bold, strong voice, because at the end of the day, if you flop, no one's going to care either. In fact, they probably expect that it will go nowhere. So it's this amazing open runway for basically whatever the heck you want to do. And let's not forget, TikTok is short form. Mm-hmm. Instagram Reels are short form content. And essentially these new like the new wave of creation is web series.
Mm-hmm.
Like
plenty of those have gone viral and been monetized. So
yeah.
Yes, so we're discovering that through just amassing a certain amount of eyeballs, that there is money, then there's value there. And so if you want to reach for that, that's a kind of a new frontier. But I think the anything goes is why I like short form.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of nice because you could just, you could always find like 4 days or 3 days even, or 6 days to like out of your busy schedule to get a bunch of really, creative people together to create something if you have a solid script and all of the parts aligned. But it just doesn't take, it's not a huge time commitment. So it makes it more attainable and easier to execute.
Yeah. And I think too, also all of that makes it that much more motivating to actually go and write something, because I talk to a lot of filmmakers that say like, sure, I'd like to go make a feature or even like a very low budget DIY feature film, but like, I don't know if I could pull it off. So like, I'm not even going to write the script because I'm not motivated. But with a short film, you could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit more. And like you said, you can pull it together in a couple of days if you need to, and just figure out how to, call in favors or do whatever it is, which you can't do on like a, 25-day feature film. But Yeah, so as far as like the project itself and what it looked like in terms of like the scope, I don't know if you want to speak to budget or crew size or any of that stuff, but these are always like these kind of projects come together so differently, and obviously there's no two ways to make a short. So what did this one look like sort of on the page? Was it ambitious from the get-go? Like just looking at the teaser, it feels like super high production value and it has amazing locations and all of that. So yeah, so I'd love to just hear about like the scope and if that was thought about, I guess, while you're writing the film to make it producible, or if you're just like writing the most creative thing you can and then figuring out how
Why
to
would
kind of
I?
make it.
Why would I worry about making it producible? I mean, that's the producer's job. No, I'm just kidding. I was ostensibly shoulder to shoulder with the producers, quote unquote, on this. I mean, I think I'm credited as one. So I take that responsibility seriously. Nevertheless, I constantly overwrite, constantly too many locations in every script that I write.
Incredibly ambitious.
Insane. She's not saying the word insane, which is what it was. It was from the start, and I kind of dialed it down a little bit, but like also not really. I mean, it was truly like I feel like we shot a feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the size of the crew or the amount of production time or just everything, it was just a big ordeal.
Yeah, and for the budget too, like we only ended up spending 50 cash, but for the deals that I negotiated, the actualized value of what this would have cost from the vendors we were working with was 300,000, which is a feature.
And does that include post-production?
Yes.
Okay, so was it roughly sort of like half goes into production, half into post, more or less, or just for people
No, it was mostly production.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, 30% post, maybe?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it really does help your film stand out because, I mean, as we all know, like festivals are only more and more saturated every year
Yes.
with short films. And I've programmed for some myself, and like you just see so much stuff come in that kind of looks all the same. And these days, like everything looks pretty good. But when you see something that just has that like 10% edge on it that's just that much more interesting looking, or it does something different with the story or performances, like you really do need to stand out. And I'd love to talk about that a little, just from both perspectives, like from the directing side, but also from the performance side, in terms of like bringing something new and kind of breaking new ground with the film, and how maybe some of the ways that you were able to achieve that.
Well, I will just say it was such an ambitious shoot on the production side. On my side, I was like, hey, like, all I have to do is, show up. I mean, I actually put in 3 months of intense training in before. I'm an ice skater, so I grew up ice skating. I'm like, I've maintained like a certain level, except if you want to do like any tricks or jumps or spins or anything like that with any kind of consistency, then you have to be consistently skating. And I wasn't skating every day for a few years. So I got on the ice every morning for like 3 months leading up to the 4-day shoot. And so there was actually a lot of work that I put into it, but I loved having an excuse to get to the ice. And by the way, I also broke in a whole new pair of skates during that time, which if you're an ice skater, any kind of athlete, like, that's kind of incredibly, that's insane. So everything about this was insane, but I knew Misha was going to pull it off, and I knew I could pull it off, and we're both very ambitious people. So so it kind of worked.
But that's also, I think, really what it takes. And then obviously I want to hear, Misha, your perspective as well. But it's like that, just going the extra mile, especially with a short film, because, like I was getting to before, I think a lot of filmmakers just see shorts as kind of like, a means to some other end, or it's like a bridge that's going to get them to something else, as opposed to thinking about like, how can we just make this the most amazing piece of art on its own, and like not worry about what it leads to. And that's where it's like training to do all of what you did, and like, and that's obviously very complicated. That's what you would do for a larger feature film. So to do it for a short and to take it just as seriously, I think that is one of the things that obviously is going to make the film stand out. And also just like not limiting the scope and limiting the world, and having something like as unique as just ice skating or just the world itself, I think can, when you don't see, there's so many trends that we see like at festivals every year, like certain topics or themes or worlds that are being explored. But when it's something that I think is like kind of personal or actually rooted in your own experience, that tends to, by definition, make it that much more special and I think catch people's attention. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to know about like, yeah, Misha, just as you're directing the film and kind of going through this process, like whether it was like from a story perspective or visually, like what were some of the things that you were really leaning on as kind of the big like selling features, to so to speak, of the movie, the big like hooks that you knew were going to kind of make or break the final results?
Well, I will also start by saying I'm very guilty of wanting this to be a stepping stone. I think it's an end in and of itself, and it is a means to an end. And a little bit of that is good, and a little bit of that is bad, I think. But I'm like in process as a filmmaker of always still finding my confidence and finding that my voice is enough and that I don't need someone to approve it or validate it or sort of institutional validation. Like I'm in process with that of finding a way to just stand on my own 2 feet creatively without needing that validation. So I don't know if that's going to resonate with anyone, but it's the truth.
No, for sure.
What was the question?
No, I guess I'm just thinking like, I don't know if you feel like this when you direct something, but I know at least lately when I have a project I'm directing, I often I often come back to that idea of like, what makes this different? Like, what is it about this that's, what are the special qualities about the film that
Yeah.
I could really play into that are going to make it stand out and going to sort of play into my strengths and abilities and
Yeah,
resources
sure.
and all those things, I'm sure that you probably considered.
Yeah. I think I have a sort of hallucinogenic approach to feminism and also actual feminism, because a lot of times we'll see signaling of that in film and TV, and it's actually still pretty male gazy or pretty playing into stereotypes about women. And I think I like to actually get in the head of the female protagonist or ensemble, and that can look really weird. It can look really dark. It can be really raw and funny and unglamorous. Or in the case of Pink Flags, uh, we go into the mind of Liberty, played by Ray, and we see a pink void, a white void that turns pink, and then that's her inner world. And we spend some time there, and there's no real explanation of it ever. We just are in the quote real world, and then we're in her brain, which is a pink void. Yeah.
Welcome to my head.
I love that though. I love that sort of surreal, like whatever you want to call it, that motif that you can build in that just creates its own distinct language. And those are the things that I think really stick with people visually, because it is a visual medium and obviously you're telling a story, but in order for it to connect and resonate, like there's so much that can be done visually that, yeah, if you can kind of break new ground in that way, as it sounds like you did, and yeah, that's really where your own voice and tone and style, I think, comes out. And so one of the things I want to ask you about, because I rarely get to have an actor and director together on the podcast, and I was really excited to have you both here for that reason, because I like, to me, the most important element, like I love writing, I love camera, all those things, like we all like all of it, I guess, if we're in filmmaking, but it really is, it's the acting, it's the performances, and that is what personally, like, I do it for. Like, I love that collaboration, and I think every collaboration between every director and actor has its own little nuances and evolves over time. You obviously both knew each other and were friends, but what did that look like as far as working together and collaborating? And yeah, maybe Ray, if you want to jump in on this, and
I'm scared.
was there was there any difference?
She said, if you don't get this right. No, it just felt very organic. And I really felt like I had someone in my corner who like really wanted it to be great and wasn't, just like really rooting for me, I guess, and had a lot of confidence in me. And so that was awesome. Yeah, I felt like we were just a really good team.
What about like the collaborative process, as far as like, because you said you had time to do all of the training and the skating and everything. So was there more like rehearsal time than usual, or was there anything different in terms of just like working out the material or giving input on dialogue or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there was a lot of choreography. So there was some really cool fight choreography, workshops that we did together. And Misha was there for all of them. And we worked with an amazing trainer. Misha, what's her name again?
Caitlin Farley.
Caitlin Farley. She's so great. She's so great. Yeah, she was just a boss. And it was really fun because again, I have a skating background, but also dancing, and it's oftentimes it's one and the same. It's dancing on ice, but it was really fun to work on that choreography and get it in our bodies before we shot. So there was a lot of rehearsal. There was a lot of physical rehearsal and emotional and all of the things.
Yeah. Shout out to New York Combat for Stage and Screen for the incredible fight choreo that they did, Caitlin and her assistant, Sophie Mashowski. Yes. I think I wrote the part for Raye. I wrote it for her. So from the beginning, her DNA was all over it. And that's one of my preferred ways to write, is to have an actor in mind already. And, obviously Liberty is not Raye. She's different. She's a part of Raye, or a spinoff. But it was really easy, I think, hopefully easy for Raye to connect to Liberty because I had her in mind from day one.
Yeah. And did that translate to kind of a more fluid workflow on set and just like a, easier process, or if there's any such thing, I guess, when you're making a film, or did it feel the same once you got on set as anything else that you directed?
Oh, for me, it was much better. I mean, I don't know about Raye. We'll find out. But I had a really beautiful time working with her. And, by contrast, I didn't know Sawyer before the movie. But I was able to kind of parlay my comfort with Raye and extend it to him so that I just felt great. I also felt taken care of.
I translated everything for him. No, I'm kidding. You guys had your own special kind of like, creative workings together. And I didn't want to interfere with that. Like he was a part of this, and he was an actor in it separate from me at that point, and so you guys met a few times, and from what I heard, I got wind of, and worked through it together. So, Eamon was this whole other character. But with my character, I really just, it was so great working with Misha. I really felt supported and like encouraged. And we together created that role. I felt like it was a true collaboration because I was constantly checking in with her, like, did you get what you want? But I could see she was also like doing one of the more ambitious things in a 4-day period. So I was like also wanting to just be ready when she was ready for me and really just be the best collaborator possible. I love being an actor and taking direction and like just being in that.
You were a machine. Every single take. You were great.
And what about working with Sawyer? Like anytime you work with someone that you're that close to, it's like I mean, everyone has a different experience, obviously, with it. So what was that like? Was that helpful in terms of, I haven't seen the whole film yet, so I don't know
Yeah.
how many scenes are like together, or what have you. But yeah, I'm curious to know about like how that translated, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely had to, like, use some other personalizations. Like I love that, like, I'm a performer. I perform on the ice and off the ice, and when you're ice skating, you don't have a voice, but you have your body to express stuff. And so it's like a voiceless performer kind of thing, and which is an interesting. Anyway, so I'm kind of tangenting here, but my point is that when you're ice skating, it's so performative, and you want to perform for an audience. However, whenever you have like an audience member or a gaze on you that feels uninvited or off, like, then that's when at least Liberty's like sensors went up in arms, and it's just like, or just like, like, whoa, wait, something feels different. Like I'm skating in a stadium. People are supposed to watch me. That's something that I do, that I want, that's called for in this performative field. However, I'm getting unwanted, whatever. And so for Sawyer to play that role, obviously I had to like personalize it as someone else or another kind of entity, but it was far enough from the truth of like my relationship with Sawyer that it was really fun to play that out with him. Yeah. So for example, there's another project that actually I got cast in opposite Sawyer, and most recently, and he and I decided that it was best if, and my role was so small but very impactful, but he and I decided that it was best that I didn't do the role, because it was so it was what played out was actually like a breakup, not only breakup, but a divorce between a married couple. And he's like, and we both decided, that's not something we wanted to live through in this moment. So we are very careful with the things that we take on together to play with together, and protective over obviously like our relationship, our marriage, or whatever, but also wanting to play and have fun. And I feel like this project with Misha allowed us to really like go somewhere else with each other, where we weren't each other anymore. It was far.
I love that. I had no idea.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, that's really well said, and doing so in a way that kind of expands your horizons, but still feels like in a way that you want it to. Like you said, you maybe wouldn't want to take on a role where it's like extreme. And I think a lot of filmmakers, like they sort of don't, in my opinion, they don't have enough empathy for the actor's process and like what they actually bring back home with them sometimes, especially with like very emotionally charged roles and things like that. And then when you're working with your spouse or like someone close to you that you're living with, and like just to go through that, and then a lot of filmmakers would probably think like, oh well, they're just actors, they kind of like turn it on and turn it off. But it's like there's so much prep that goes into it, and then there's so much like unwinding from the roles and like decompressing. And yeah, I think the way that you described that is hopefully really helpful, especially for any actors listening.
Yeah.
I actually have a course, a workshop called Actor Self-Care that I filmed and that you can take as a workshop, because I have such empathy for actors, having been one my whole life before being a director. So just quick plug, if you want to take that course, Actor Self-Care, go to clubvermillion.com, and I have all my courses there that speak exactly to this issue.
Yeah, well, that's amazing you put that together. I had no idea. And I mean, I'm interested to know more about your acting background, because I think that might be something that we have in common. I also, like, from a very young age, I was into acting, and then as a teenager, it kind of like transitioned, more into the filmmaking side. But I don't know if you relate to this, but like for me, I was more grateful than anything that I had the acting background more than camera or editing or any of the other things that I did, because like I said before, it's for me, it's like the number one thing, this number one role of a director, and number one tool to sort of tell your story through our collaborative actors and your cast. But also I just think it helps you have a better eye for kind of an authentic performance and the right performance, the right casting. So I'd love if you could speak to a little bit about your acting background as well, Misha, and like how that has informed, whether like consciously or just unconsciously, your process as a director.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot to say, but I'll try and keep it brief. I think with so many other art forms, you can have a beautiful picture or a beautiful sound or a beautiful smell or whatever. But with stage and screen, everything really, if it's narrative, is about relationships. And you can have other elements of landscape and inanimate objects and so on, colors, but the pieces that we love, at its core, it's about a relationship. So for that, you have to have actors, and you have to have them relating to each other. So I think that's one thing that for me elevates stage and screen above all other art forms, is that you are combining basically all the other arts into this one type of creative expression, and with human interaction and relating at its core. I think as kids, if we have that creative spark, like from birth, which almost all of us do, based on studies. But for those of us that are drawn to world building and performance, the avenue that's available to us is typically acting. Maybe it's different now. I don't know. I don't have kids now. Ray, you could speak to that. But when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of like content creators, and there certainly weren't a lot of female filmmakers. I knew of none until I was like 30. So I think the thing that just we have exposure to is acting, and then that's why so many of us grow up doing theater, community theater, whatever. And then that, as we get older, there's more avenues available to create.
It echoes like so many of my own feelings about like just what you said about filmmaking kind of encapsulating all of the art forms. Like it's music, you could have dance, you could have skating, you could have painting, you know, but it all like the performance and the narrative of the that the actors ultimately carry is what is the glue that holds it all together. And yeah, I love that you know you put it that way. And what about like your entry into acting, Ray? Because I totally relate to Misha. Like I know for a fact, like the reason I started it was not knowing I really wanted to be a filmmaker, but having no idea. Like I didn't even know there was such thing as a director. I just thought the actors like made it up, you know, as they went along. So I just, you know, started
We
auditioning
do,
and
but
getting
I'm
in.
kidding.
Well, sometimes I guess depends,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
but yeah, for you, it's, you know, it's obviously a different entry point for somebody who is like destined to, you know, that's their thing. Like it's not a means to get to some other part of the process, right? So yeah, I'd love to know about like how you kind of got into it and what's kind of kept you grounded like through these years, because it's really like, you know, it's a tough job being an actor, and I
Yeah.
don't think people appreciate that.
I mean, I would say I'm a masochist and I love rejection.
Well,
No.
perfect.
Um, I guess, yeah. I mean, a friend of mine once said she's in casting, and she was just like, you know, you just have to see every audition as like you got the job, and then that's it. And then if they want you to continue the job, then you continue the job. But in that moment, that's your job to do the audition. And anyway, and so I've really loved I love auditioning. And I also really admire all the actors out there who like just take on not every project, but just love to work, I guess. Anyway, so going back to my origins though, I knew I wanted to be an actor before I knew it was like even a job that you could get paid for, because I thought it was just like play. And I had a few moments in growing up where I had an opportunity to kind of like dive headfirst into it at a young age, and I kind of chickened out, I would say, or like got scared of diving in head first because I didn't have actor as a career modeled for me at all, and it wasn't a bad thing that it wasn't, but I needed at a very young age. I was like, this is play for me. This is fun. And then I have to do like hard work like everybody else to like, the math and science and I don't know, whatever. And so I got into professional performing arts school. I did a song and a dance and I was so excited. And then I ended up saying, okay, I got in so I could do it. I'm going to do it after I do all my academic stuff. And then I got into LaGuardia for drama and I had a song and dance and multiple callbacks and I got in, and then I ended up not going because I was like, okay, cool. I got in. So I always have that. Like I'm going to do that, but I have to do it after I do all my academic stuff. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have like a roundabout way back into acting, and I didn't realize how like hard it would be to kind of break into later on. So if anyone has the bug and they're young or their daughters and sons or kids have the bug, I say just like full on go into it. Like, why not? Maybe wait until, a little bit older, like, like, because you don't want to get into it too young and then have this like spike of whatever. But I don't know. Anyway, it just was like so much fun to me that I couldn't understand how, work was work and hard. And that's what I equated to work. But as soon as I was like, old enough to speak, I was like, I want to be an actor, an actress / waitress. And that's my dream. And I knew because I always like wanted to read lines with my sister and I would write these scripts and it was like so boring for her. And I was like, okay, if this is so exciting for me, like there's something here. And I just love the play of it. I love the collaboration. I feel like actors are at the center of so many different creative influences, like of the director, the writer, the producer. You know what I mean? All of these things come down to how it translates through the actor. And so I just wanting to collaborate with people, that's like I get to be at the epicenter of it all. And I think like, you don't have control over what you say all the time, but you do have control over, you have, 90% control because you have control over how you say it. And 90% of, the meaning is the majority of it. The meaning is the thing. The meaning makes it what it is. And I love the wordplay and how you can take one sentence and say it so many different ways and it literally so many different meanings. So that to me is really exciting. And just like the chemistry between people and playing with that and just studying behavior so yeah, I'm totally in love with it. And I'm venturing a little bit into producing myself just because I've started this production company. It's called Left No Ring. It's a reference to Shakespeare, but it's also just like because I want to have more control over like the projects that I do get to do. And that's it.
No, that makes so much sense, and I love how the way that you kind of described it. Again, I relate to just in your description of like kind of this roundabout way of like always circling around and coming back to performance and feeling like when you described like you didn't know it could be a job, and it's how I felt with filmmaking. Like I didn't know any filmmakers, like so I sort of always just thought like it's just a hobby or it's something like I'll study psychology when I go to university, and then I'll like maybe I'll make films on the side for fun, and then but I think sometimes everyone's different, but I think sometimes if you take the path that you did, you end up in a better place for you because you're not going through the usual kind of like avenues that you're supposed to take, that end up sometimes kind of like burning people out or turning them off of the process, and or like making them operate in a way that's counterintuitive, because there's so many ways to work as an actor. And like you said, you could produce your own material. and or you could not, or you could work, in theater, you could work in film. Like, there's so many nuances and gradations of all the different things that we do. So when you're kind of just staying true to like your inner voice of like, no, I just keep coming back to this because this is what I want to do. I don't necessarily need to go through this program or through whatever to get there. Then you find like the things that piece together in the way that best suit your career. And I think like going into producing is obviously a natural extension of that, because it's there, it's separate from your acting, but it also serves your acting. And like you learn so much about performance and the business of film and acting and casting and all that stuff just from being on the other side of it. And yeah, that's all I think really helpful for
What
people
she
that
didn't say
hear.
is that she's been producing for Broadway.
Okay. Well, let's hear
Oh,
about that.
first I did do training after. So I ended up going to architecture school. After architecture school, I went to a William Esper studio for acting, because I was like, okay, I got to break into my body and my get out of my head a little bit, and be silly and playful and all the stuff. But so yeah, I did do the 2-year training program, and then after that, like tons of classes, because I'm an addict and I love like meeting other actors and playing with them and stuff like that, and learning about new material and all the stuff. So I have a lot of acting training as well. So yes. Okay. But then in terms of producing, I got a cool opportunity to be on a co-producing team for Operation Mincemeat. It's opening February. Previews open February, and then it's officially opening in March 20th in at the John Golden Theater, and it's a musical comedy. And I was able to kind of like use my producing skills, and it's really great because of the team. I mean, they're from the UK, because it started, well, it didn't start, but it got to the West End. And it's been running on the West End for now. It's going into its 3rd year. It was extended like 11 times. And I really love the backstory of this whole project, because it started with like a group of 5 comedy actors who were in this comedy troupe who were just like about to give up. And then they were like, why don't we just make our own stuff? And then they did, and they made this, this whole musical. They wrote this whole show, and it snowballed and got really popular and has this kind of cult following. It won 6 Olivier Awards, including Best New Musical of this year. And now it's coming to the John Golden Theater. Yeah. So I love singing. I actually really do love it. But I could see myself in, like, for example, like Stereophonic, where it's like there's a singing element to the play that is a play. Musical theater I haven't like broken into as an actor, so I feel like I'm able to produce some stuff like that, where I don't like think of myself first to be in it.
I know we're running somewhat short on time, so there's one question I want to get to. I ask all filmmakers a version of this question, but I think this will be interesting just to hear from the actor perspective as well as the director, which is, what makes somebody a good director?
Age.
Yeah.
But
okay. Experience, I guess.
That's not really helpful to a young director. I think that what we're doing here is a spiritual act. I think it's a multi-dimensional act. So speaking as somebody who likes the astral plane as much as the earth plane, I think that artists have the capacity, unlike most other people on earth, they have the capacity and the motivation to reach into other dimensions, to channel material. That is, and that's a much more powerful act than just thinking. Like, the human brain is great, but if you can really touch those other universes, and with actors, the reason why actors are so central to the act, in addition to what we've been talking, all the reasons we've said already, actors are the ones embodying those other people and those other spirits and those other characters from other worlds, I believe. So a director, if they're able to tap into that alternate dimension and let it flow through you instead of your good idea of how your ego thinks it needs to be, so you open yourself up to bigger forces. I think that's a really incredible trait, to trust yourself enough to be that conduit.
And then, yeah, from your perspective, Raye, what, like, when you're working with the director, what makes them, effective to you, and what do you look for in a, on a directing level?
Well, just piggybacking off of what Misha said, just getting, or maybe saying it a different way, I really like, you do all the work to find the character, but for me personally, it works best when I like get out of my head and I get into that flow state, and I'm just able to like really be free and play. And that's either when like, I've really sunk into like certain emotional places, and and my emotions take over and I get out of my head that way, or I get really playful and I get in this flow state, and kind of get out of my head that way. So like, yeah, so having a director who, and I feel like I've been so fortunate over the past few years. I've come across and started working with like a lot of really great directors like Misha, like, and especially, certain women in my life, like Caroline Keene, who I worked with on Mary Goodenough, and Dan Kennedy. They both co-directed it together, but Mary Goodenough together. But working with someone like Misha, what I really appreciated working with Misha is that she kind of like let me do my thing. She gave me the space, and then she was like very careful, not too careful, but like very particular about what she would say to me. And it would usually be just like, and I have a capacity to like, take in whatever she has to say and all of the tangents and everything. But she made sure to be it was like a well-oiled machine, like very, very precise. There's a certain amount of precision in her directing where it was just like, I'm going to give you that and then walk away, like add like a drop of color to the paint and then like walk away and just see what happened. And then I was like, oh, cool. Okay, let's try that color, And so there was like a certain freedom and like shorthand, I guess.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's sort of that perfect balance of giving you the freedom to explore and bring out whatever it is in the character that you're seeing, but also feeling that you're in good hands and the director has a very clear vision so that you can kind of be creative within those parameters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
I trusted her. I trusted her to do it. So that's important.
That's awesome. No, I love both of those answers, and I'd have tons more questions if we didn't have to go. So I'll let you both run in a second. But before I do, if you can let us know where we can follow you, if you want to leave any like social media links or website, anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on social at Misha Calvert, MISHACALVERT. And my website's mishacalvert.com. And for my classes and consulting, it's clubvermilion.com.
Yeah, mine is my name, RAYE, Raye Spielberg. So at Raye Spielberg. And my website's the same, rayespielberg.com. And yeah, my phone number is no, I'm kidding.
Thank you so much for listening to Film on Tape. If you like the way that I approach the industry, check out our other classes, consulting, and mentorship at clubvermilion.com. Vermilion is a home for artists and those looking to expand creatively. Whether you're an actor, a film professional, an entrepreneur, or a CEO, we'll help you find your voice and hone your skills to thrive in any market at any scale. You can schedule a free phone consultation at clubvermilion.com.